Flooding has emerged as a persistent and debilitating challenge in Nigerian housing sector, displacing millions of citizens and wreaking havoc on communities. The country's history is reckoned with devastating flood incidents, with 2024 being no exception. Borno, Niger, Anambra, and the Federal Capital Territory were among the areas severely affected. As the nation looks ahead to 2025, a critical question arises. What does the future hold for Nigerians in the quest to mitigate and overcome the scourge of flooding? Welcome to Inside the Real Estate and Housing TV Africa. I am your host, Nimona Babudu. Today we're tackling a critical issue that affects us all, protecting our homes and cities from the devastating impact of flooding. Joining me is a renowned expert in the build sector who will share invaluable insights on protecting our homes, effective flood mitigation planning for 2025. The conversation begins after this quick break.
Get credible and authentic housing news at your fingertips by downloading the Housing TV mobile app. You can also join the African International Housing Show live from across the globe through the Housing TV mobile app. The mobile app features live streaming and trending housing news. You can locate the AIHS venue via the app. Let's work with AIHS season speakers and live chat with exhibitors. You can also order house or building materials at AIHS via this app. Download the Housing TV mobile app now from the App Store and Google Play Store. And don't forget to click on the notification button. Available for both iOS and Android users. Housing TV is also on Star Times, channel 149 decoder.
Welcome back from that quick break. It's such a pleasure to have our guest with us here in the studio in person of Town Planner Dr. David Olawale, FNITP. He's the immediate past National Public Relations Secretary of the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners and also the Chairman Association of Town Planning Consultants of Nigeria, Lagos State Branch. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio today to have this very huge conversation that is affecting every individual and every state in Nigeria. You're highly welcome, sir.
Thank you, Memuna, for having me.
So before we dive into the main topic for today, let's take a review back from 2024, and because that's the reason why we're having this conversation. Yes. Because we witnessed a devastating flood in 2024. A lot of people lost their homes. A lot of people lost, a lot of things, properties and what have you. So in your own view, what would you say really was the main issue concerning the flooding that we had in Nigeria in the year 2024?
Well, thank you very much. Flooding is a natural disaster. And when it happens, in most cases, it goes out of control. What is important when we are talking of flooding is that putting a mitigative measure of it, not allowing it to happen. Like I said, when it happens, the impact is always severe on both human life and properties. And looking back at what happened in 2024, or even we can take it back to 2023, 2022, a lot of states in the country were severely affected. So many properties were lost. A lot of things happened. People lost their properties, people lost lives, they lost families, they lost, relatives because of the impact of that flooding for those years. So it really affects a lot of things. Talking of hard-earned resources of people, talking of human life, talking of properties in different states of the country. So it happens, and the causes can be traced to so many, sources. For instance, the human factor is there. How do we take care of our environment? How do we manage our environment? How do we maintain our environment? In most cases, when you look at the drainage, just walk along the streets, walk along the road and look at the drainages in so many places. You see those drainages have been filled up with refuse, with, so many things. And at the end of the day, there's no way such a thing will not have impact when the rain starts. Looking at the volume of rain in those years, it was very heavy. And if one thing about water is that it will always find its course.
Of course.
So when it happens, so when the drainages that are supposed to, take the runoff water have been filled up with refuse, then the water will always find its way, and that is why you see water spreading all around the communities, the roads, the cities and everywhere. It will spread all over everywhere, and at the end of the day, that is the result of what we always get. So, because like I said, water will always find its course. So the impact was very, very severe. That's another thing. Then looking at the dam, when that dam is being released from the Cameroon side, it flows through Nigeria. And as a result of that, the volume of water, the level of water will rise. And the moment it rises beyond, above the river bank, it begins to spread around everywhere, and it's a disaster to both human life and property. So it has a lot of effect, and the sources are numerous to mention. But how do we curtail this?
Good.
Is what you and I need to begin to work towards.
And that's why we are having this conversation today.
Thank
So
you.
quickly, let's rush into the topic at hand, which is protecting our homes, flood mitigation planning for 2025. As citizens of the country, as Nigerians, and also, people living in communities, how can we effectively prepare for flood and, do the right thing? How can we prepare for that?
Thank you very much. Well, as a planner, or let me say as a town planner, I will take it from the angle of planning.
Okay.
In a situation whereby there is no planning, there will always be chaos. When there is proper planning, we will know where the road is supposed to pass through. In an attempt to provide, to make way for the road, the drainages will follow. And that drainage is what will take off the runoff water. So, when we are looking for a way to mitigate it against flood, planning is very, very key. There must be proper plan for all our settlements, for all our communities. It's not about building houses, it's not about coming up with different developments, but are we building them accordingly? If we have plan that will guide those development, it makes it easier for us to put things in proper shape. And by the time the runoff water is coming, you know where the drainages are supposed to, be, and that make way for the runoff water when it is time for rainy season. So now, building around the river bank, there is setbacks for all this development. It is the planning. It is when we have proper plan, when we have adequate plan that can address all these challenges, that is when we know that, okay, this is the number of meters that are supposed to live as setbacks from the river to wherever your property starts. So this will give way for the water, the river, to be able to make adequate space for the water that will flow through that river. It may be the river from, I mean, the water from the river itself, or the runoff water when there is rain, and all of that. So it will be able to accommodate that. Then another thing is that there should be proper channelization of those river banks. We should try as much as possible to avoid blocking the water the water space. So if we have adequate provision for this, when there is rain, it makes it easier for the water to flow from all these channels, both the drainage, the rivers, and what have you. And so by the time we have this, even if there is heavy downpour, within few hours or within few minutes, the water will go off from the surface of the earth. So this will help us to mitigate against the flooding.
So Town Planner Olawale, I'm going to take it from what you said, which rightly you said you took it from the town planner's perspective.
Yes.
I am one that is not an advocate for demolition, except if that structure is maybe has a defect, and we know that when that structure is not being demolished, lives will be lost. Except that, then I can say, okay, fine, I can advocate for demolition. Now, this brings me to my next question as to planned cities. There are already cities that have, roads are being built already. There are structures. Are we going to advocate for demolition because that area is prone to flooding, or we should look for better ways and better solutions to mitigate the flooding?
Thank you very much. There are ways in which we can provide, as town planners, we are solutions finders. We are not advocates of demolishing properties, making people to lose their hard-earned resources and all of that. But at the same time, like you have rightly said, if the property is being built in a place that, one, it will obstruct the flow of runoff water, and at the end of the day, it will lead to the flooding, and the flooding leads to loss of lives and properties. There should be a solution to that. If such a property is being built on, let's say, river banks, built on the drainage channels and all of that, there's no amount of sympathy you can have for such property, because at the end of the day, by the time the impact of that negligence comes, it will be more than even the resources we are talking about. Because in a situation whereby only one single life is being lost in the flood, it goes beyond the properties we are talking about. So if we have such a property, then the best thing is to remove it and let the proper channel of water be created. But in a situation whereby that is not the case, then how do we mitigate against flood in such an environment? The drainage channels, we have in the plan, we have space for the drainage channels where this water we are talking about supposed to be flowing around, and all of that. Why can't we do the proper channelization? If the volume of that drainage, the size of the drainage is small compared to the volume of water that comes around that place, why can't we widen it so that it gives rooms for more, higher volume of water to be able to flow adequately without being spreading into the communities or causing injury to human lives and properties. That's one. Two, all these drainages, they call them channels. They flows into some natural channels, which are like rivers, lagoons, canals, and all of that. Have we checked the depth of those rivers as well? Some of them are not deep enough to be able to accommodate or to absorb the volume of water that is being introduced into that place. So why can't we rechannel those rivers. We can dredge, do dredging, to widen those rivers so that it will be able to accommodate more water. By the time we have all of this, even in some the areas that we call wetlands, by the time you do proper channelization, proper dredging, the water will flow into that area, and even those lands you are thinking they are waterlogged, they are this and that, by the time there is adequate channel of drainage or the river that absorb that water, the whole place will dry off. So for us, what we need to do is not about demolishing the entire place if what is being built there is not against the plan. But in a situation whereby it's against the plan, then some may have to go. But as planners, we are not the advocate of building demolition. But in a situation whereby it gets to that stage, and that is the last option, or that's the last solution to the problem, it may occur.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on that, and I love the fact that you've been able to expatiate and then to give us some possible solutions on how communities and citizens can be able to mitigate flooding in their area. Now, okay, let's go on a short break. The conversation continues after back. Stay with us.
When the city is getting too loud, you need a home. Home is love, peace, and tranquility. Home is Housing TV Africa. Housing TV Africa, your first in housing news.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is the program Inside the Real Estate and Housing TV Africa. Still in the studio having a conversation with my guest, town planner Dr. David Olawale, FNITP, and we're looking at protecting our homes, flood mitigation planning for 2025. If you're just joining us, we've had a lot of conversations. Town planner David have been able to list out some possible solutions that we can adhere to help solve flooding in the year 2025. Now we're going to move to community effort. Before we went on a short break, you made valid points, and people make up the community. And how can we sustain our community if we don't have people in that community paying attention to key things that can destroy their community? Flooding is number one. You made mention of people putting dumps or dirt inside drainages, thereby making this water not to flow very well. Now, how can communities be educated on flood risks and mitigation strategies? Because a lot of these communities, especially the rural communities, don't even understand what we're talking about. But when this flood comes, they are all out shouting, "I've lost my property, I don't have a place to stay."
Well, thank you very much. There's this popular saying that is going on now, that when you see something, you say something.
Yeah.
It's not the duty of government alone to make sure that we keep our environment clean. Of course, government have major impact or major role to play when it comes to this. But at the same time, as members of communities, we also have major roles to play. We are the one using all these materials that we are dumping the refuse on the drainage channels. We are dumping it indiscriminately, and at the end of the day, when the rain falls, it pack everything into the drain and block the drainage channel, and that's what is leading to flooding in most cases. As community members, as members of that community, what are our roles to make sure that we keep our environment clean. What stops us from having basic dumping, waste disposals? It starts from our homes, where we can be dumping all these refuse. From there, we'll take it to, a major depot where whether the government agencies or the PSPs can come around and pack them and take them to the proper refuse dump site. Why are we not imbibing that ideas? The ideas that can help us to clean our environment, that can help us, even to live healthy. So this starts from individual homes. It starts from community, as our collective effort. It's not only, for the community development association or the community groups to, collecting money from their members to do this, to do that. But, we can come up with ideas on how to manage our waste. So by the time we begin to do that, it will help us a lot. Of course, like I said, government have a role to play. But at the same time, as members of communities, we must also play our own part. And that is the only way we can get it right.
This just reminded me growing up. I could remember, I think every last Saturday of every month, communities, areas usually have sanitation Saturday. What do? They come out, they clean their environment, they make sure that drainages that are being, refuse dumps are there, they clean them. But I don't think these days we have anything such as that in your area. Do you still
when in some, I can say in some states it's still happening, but how effective is that exercise is the question.
I think it has been taken over by events because a lot of people are busy.
Yes, exactly. Some people think that is the time for them to go about their businesses and all of that. It's true. We can go about our business, but that particular, exercise, we must take it serious. There are some areas that, of course, you cannot, especially where we have the elite and all of that, you can't expect them to come out and be, but at the same time, there are ways by which we can do all of this. If the communities deem it so fit that, this exercise, we still want to be having it, why can't we can commission some people to be doing it for us, make sure that we clean our environment, and there should be a kind of sanction for people that find fault of this kind of exercise. When the drainage in front of your house is dirty, is filled up with that, you should be sanctioned for it, so that that keeping our environment, keeping our drainages, keeping our communities clean will go a long way in solving the flooding problem that we are talking about. It has come to us, this flooding issue. If you observe the trend now, few years back, you see that it has become a kind of recurrent issues. So it's now happening every year. Even in some years we have it like 2-3 times in a year.
Yeah.
So, and the only solution is for us to mitigate it, not to allow it to happen. Once it's happened, it causes a lot of damages. So there's need for us as community members to play our own part, not leaving everything for government to come and do for us.
But we'll still come back to the government.
Of course.
Town planner Olawale, that's the truth.
Yes,
we should not leave everything for the government. We'll still come back to the government because, to be very honest with you, governments cannot do it alone. Even private people, like we individuals, cannot do it alone. And this brings me to my next question before we wrap up today's episode. It's 2025. We are hoping that we don't experience the same thing we experienced last year and other previous years. How do you think that the government can be able to mitigate this flooding in the year 2025? I am not saying if it's possible, fine and good, we could, mitigate it overall, like entirely. But if it's not possible, to a bare minimum, because last year was a disaster, which of course you're aware. So how can the federal government mitigate this flooding issue this year?
Yes, like I said, Government alone cannot do it. We all have our parts to play when it comes to mitigating the flood. But like you said, at the end of the day, everything still comes back to government, because if the disaster happens, if the disaster occurs, it's still the same government that even people that are dumping refuse inside the drainage in front of their house, they will still call government, to come and rescue them, or to blame government that government did not do what they are supposed to do and all of that. Fine. That's why I agree with you that it will still comes to government. But like I said, all of us have role to play. Now, to your question, for us to mitigate against this disaster, there's no two way about it. It's disaster. It's only for it not to happen. The moment it's happened, it creates a lot of problems. It's, loss of properties, loss of lives, and all of that. So now governments have to be proactive, to be more proactive in their dealings with this problem. There are a lot of technologies that has been, developed to mitigate against floods. So we have a lot of them. But the point is that it is high time both government and individuals will begin to key into those technologies for us to be able to do it well. One of it is the flood forecasting. Nothing stops us from, I thank God, government, our government agency have started doing that now. The forecast, NIMET is working on that to forecast the level of, water rise and all of that, So, and for us to be able to do that adequately, we need satellite data. For us to be able to do it adequately. US is practicing it, they have their National Weather Service in which, they collect data, they analyze this and know how to monitor, how do I put it now, the weather or the volume of water, the rains that will happen in a year. Also, we can invest in hydrological, modeling. We can invest in that. It's been practiced, in the advanced countries. Nothing stops us, because it's better we prevent this flood from coming than when it now we begin to find solution. It's not easy to control water when it's happening. So we can begin to put all this together for us to be able to meet a high power. The flood forecasting, can also help a lot in making sure that we get over this. Another way by which we can mitigate against this is by providing flood barriers. By providing flood barriers, there we have what we call flood gates. We can build that around the water banks and all of that, so that it prevents water from flowing indiscriminately into communities, into the areas. Of course, the water level will always rise. It will always rise, because when we enter the season, the water level will rise. But if we have something like that, it will help us to be able to mitigate, against it. Another thing is flood panels. It's been practiced, in advanced countries. What stops us from investing heavily on that, rather than we are now building, what's it called? Homes for the displaced people at the end of the day, like yes,
when we are supposed to have
exactly, when we can actually prevent it from
at the end of the day, you get to find out that government will spend
more money, exactly,
at the end of the
yes,
day.
because you have to resettle them. You have to provide these people that are vending for themselves. You have to be the one. Government have to be the one providing basic needs for them, providing food, providing so many things. So, that is why it's good. It's always good for us to prevent it. And another thing that I think we can do is to begin to build flood-proof structures. We were at a workshop sometimes last year, and was being shown different type of, structures that can be built in those waterine areas, even inside the water, that when the flood is even coming, they will continue to live their normal life.
It's been an insightful conversation with Town Planner Dr. David Olawale, FNITP, on protecting our homes, flood mitigation planning for 2025. We really hope that this year it's going to be, subtle. We really, really hope so. And then we hope that the government and also individuals in different communities will take up the responsibility. It's very important. Take up the responsibility to do the right thing. Like you said, if you see something, you say something. Even if you're under, like I've done it several times. I've seen some people working and then they throw things on the ground. I politely tell them it is wrong. You don't throw things on the ground. It could. First things first, it's not even good for the environment. The environment is dirty, and then we're approaching the raining season. These are, these dirts make up, or rather, yes, make up the whole blockage system or in our drainages. Thank you so much for coming.
It's my pleasure.
On today's episode of the program Inside the Real Estate. I had a good one with you, and I know the viewers also learnt one or two things.
Yes, thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining us on today's conversation and Inside the Real Estate. Catch up this episode and subsequent discussions by subscribing to our YouTube channel, Housing TV Africa. You can also follow us on all of our social media platforms at Housing TV Africa. Do not forget to download the Housing TV Africa mobile app on Google Play Store and Apple Store to stay connected wherever you go. I am Yumina Bagodo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.